Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we go beyond surface level astrology and explore the deeper psychological patterns hidden within the birth chart, the patterns that shape the way we think, communicate, connect with others, and experience the world. Today's video is about something almost everyone has experienced, feeling misunderstood. Have you ever explained yourself, carefully chosen your words, tried your best to be clear, only for someone to walk away with a completely different understanding of what you meant? Maybe you've had people tell you that you sound cold, when you were simply trying to be honest. Maybe people think you're being argumentative, when you're really just curious or trying to understand something more deeply. Maybe you've been called too emotional, too blunt, too quiet, too analytical, too intense, or even too confusing. And no matter how much you try to explain yourself, it feels like people keep misunderstanding who you are and what you're actually trying to say. After a while, that becomes exhausting. You start replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you said the wrong thing, overthinking your texts before you send them, explaining yourself over and over again, hoping that this time people will finally understand your intentions. Some people become people pleasers, others become defensive. And some eventually stop expressing themselves altogether because they begin to believe, what's the point if nobody understands me anyway? But here's what most people never realize. Being misunderstood isn't always about poor communication. Sometimes it's because different people experience reality through completely different mental filters. We all process information differently. We notice different details. We interpret tone differently. We organize thoughts differently. We even define the same words differently. And astrology has an incredible way of showing us exactly why. Because the planet that governs communication isn't the sun, it isn't the moon, it isn't even Venus, it's Mercury. Mercury is often called the planet of communication, but that's actually an oversimplification. Mercury doesn't just describe how you speak, it reveals how your mind works, how you think, how you process information, how you solve problems, how you learn, how you organize your thoughts before you ever speak them aloud, how you interpret the words that other people say to you. And perhaps most importantly, why the gap between what you mean and what other people hear can sometimes feel so incredibly wide. Two people can have the exact same conversation, hear the exact same words, and leave with two completely different interpretations. Not because either person is wrong, but because their Mercuries are translating reality differently. That's why one person thinks you're being direct while another thinks you're being rude. One person hears confidence, another hears arrogance. One person appreciates your honesty, another feels criticized. One person thinks you're intelligent and insightful, while someone else thinks you're overcomplicating everything. The words may be identical, but the perception and interpretation is completely different. And once you understand your Mercury placement, so many of those confusing interactions suddenly begin to make sense. So today, we're going to take a deep dive into the psychology of Mercury and communication. We'll explore what Mercury actually represents beyond basic astrology, why misunderstanding happens from both an astrological and psychological perspective, how each Mercury element processes information differently, the communication style of every Mercury sign, how Mercury in each of the 12 houses shapes the way you express yourself and the ways you're most likely to be misunderstood. We'll also talk about Mercury retrograde in the natal chart, what it really means, why it's so misunderstood, and how it can shape the way someone thinks, processes information, and communicates throughout their life. Then we'll look at Mercury retrograde transits, separating the myths from the reality, and explaining why these periods can bring communication breakdowns, delays, misunderstandings, and opportunities for reflection and growth. Finally, we'll discuss hard Mercury aspects, including Mercury square, opposite, and conjunctions that challenge planets like Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, Chiron, Lilith, and Mars, as well as points like North Node and South Node, and how these aspects can influence communication patterns, mental processing, self-expression, and the ways people may consistently misunderstand you. By the end of this video, you won't just understand your communication style, you won't just understand how you communicate, you'll understand how your mind works, why certain conversations have always felt so difficult, why some people seem to understand you effortlessly while others never quite do, and why being misunderstood isn't always a reflection of your ability to communicate. Sometimes, it's simply the way your Mercury experiences the world. So, let's begin by exploring what Mercury actually represents in astrology, because it's far more complex and far more fascinating than most people realize. Most people think Mercury simply rules communication, but that's only part of the story. Mercury represents your entire cognitive process, how you perceive and interpret reality, think, reason, learn, remember, make decisions, satisfy your curiosity, process information, and ultimately express your ideas. It governs how you organize information, solve problems, receive messages from others, and even reflects the functioning of the nervous system. Two people can witness the exact same event and describe completely different realities, not because one is lying, but because their Mercury processes information differently. For example, Mercury in Pisces remembers feelings, Mercury in Virgo remembers details, Mercury in Scorpio remembers motives, and Mercury in Gemini remembers conversations. In the same way, two people can say the exact same sentence yet mean completely different things because Mercury shapes the meaning behind the words. It's the translator between your inner world and everyone else's. When Mercury functions smoothly, people understand what you're trying to communicate. But when it doesn't, you may constantly feel misunderstood even when you're speaking clearly. Sometimes the problem isn't what you're saying, it's that you're speaking one cognitive language while the other person is hearing another. Now let's talk about why people misunderstand each other. Most people assume being misunderstood happens because someone isn't listening, and that could be true, but more often, that's not the only problem. Misunderstanding usually happens because two people process reality differently. Psychology refers to this as perception bias, the idea that every person filters information through their own experiences, beliefs, emotions, assumptions, and mental patterns before assigning meaning to it. Astrology takes this one step further by showing where those differences naturally occur. Through Mercury, the planet that governs how we think, perceive, interpret, and communicate. People misunderstand each other for many reasons. They have different communication styles, make different assumptions, process information at different speeds, prioritize different details, interpret tone differently, project their own experiences onto others, and filter conversations through their emotions. Many people also unconsciously assume that everyone thinks the way they do, when in reality, every mind operates differently. This is where Mercury becomes so important. Mercury explains how your brain organizes information, what your mind naturally notices, how you interpret other people's words, and how you express your own thoughts. Sometimes you're saying one thing exactly as you intend it, but another person's Mercury translates your words into something completely different. The misunderstanding isn't always caused by poor communication, it's often the result of two completely different cognitive languages trying to understand each other through their own unique mental filters. Now let's get into Mercury by element. First we have fire Mercuries, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. You guys, think fast, communicate directly, passionately express yourselves, and speak before fully processing your thoughts. You naturally say what's on your mind without overthinking it. Your thoughts move quickly, and you prefer getting straight to the point rather than carefully choosing every word. You're often misunderstood because people see your confidence and directness as aggression. Others may assume you're arrogant, bossy, impulsive, or too loud, when in reality you're simply communicating with honesty, enthusiasm, and speed. Earth Mercuries, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. You all are practical, precise, logical, and realistic. You naturally think in facts, structure, and what actually works. Your mind focuses on accuracy, efficiency, and practical solutions rather than abstract ideas or emotional reactions. You prefer clear communication, and often take the time to think things through before speaking. You're often misunderstood because people mistake your objectivity for a lack of emotion. Others may see you as cold, overly critical, judgmental, or controlling when in reality you're simply trying to be helpful, realistic, and accurate. Air Mercuries, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. You all are curious, intellectual, fast thinkers, and open-minded. You naturally process information through ideas, questions, and possibilities. Your mind moves quickly, making connections that others may miss, and you enjoy exploring different perspectives rather than settling on just one. Communication is often how you learn, so talking things through helps you organize your thoughts. You're often misunderstood because people mistake your flexibility for a lack of commitment. Others may see you as detached, superficial, indecisive, or inconsistent, when in reality you're simply curious, adaptable, and always considering multiple viewpoints before reaching a conclusion. Lastly, we have water Mercuries, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. You all are intuitive, emotional, symbolic, and you read between the lines. You naturally process information through feelings, intuition, symbolism, and emotional undercurrents rather than just facts alone. Your mind instinctively picks up on tone, body language, hidden meanings, and what isn't being said. You often trust your instincts as much as logic because your thoughts are deeply connected to your emotional experience. You're often misunderstood because people struggle to follow how your mind connects ideas. Others may see you as too sensitive, irrational, secretive, or prone to overthinking, when in reality, you're processing layers of meaning that many people don't immediately notice. I'll now give an in-depth analysis of each Mercury sign. Mercury in Aries. You communicate directly, quickly, and without much filtering. Your mind moves at high speed, and you'd rather say your thoughts immediately than spend hours perfecting them. People often think you're angry, aggressive, or argumentative. In reality, you simply process information faster than most people. You're excited by new ideas, quick decisions, and honest conversations. To you, getting to the point is more respectful than dancing around it. Your blind spot is impatience. You may interrupt others or jump to conclusions before they've finished explaining themselves. During conflict, you'd rather address the issue immediately than let it linger. And your hidden strength is courage. You aren't afraid to say what everyone else is thinking. Mercury in Taurus. You communicate slowly, carefully, and deliberately. Your mind values stability, practicality, and certainty before reaching a conclusion. People often think you're stubborn. In reality, your brain simply refuses to rush decisions. You need time to process information fully before changing your mind. Once you've formed an opinion, it's usually because you've thought it through from every practical angle. Your blind spot is resisting new perspectives simply because they feel unfamiliar. During conflict, you stay calm for as long as possible, but once you've had enough, you're incredibly difficult to persuade. Your hidden strength is consistency. People can rely on your judgment because you rarely speak without careful consideration. Mercury in Gemini. You communicate through questions, ideas, stories, and conversation. Your mind is constantly collecting information and exploring different possibilities. People often think you're inconsistent, scattered, or indecisive. In reality, you're exploring possibilities before reaching conclusions. Your curiosity naturally leads you to see multiple sides of every situation. Your blind spot is overthinking or constantly searching for more information instead of making a decision. During conflict, you prefer talking everything through rather than letting misunderstandings grow. Your hidden strength is adaptability. Few people can understand or explain complex ideas as quickly as you can. Mercury in Cancer. You communicate with empathy, emotional awareness, and intuition. Your mind naturally filters information through feelings and personal meaning. People often think you're too emotional or overly sensitive. In reality, you're processing both the facts and the emotional impact behind them. You instinctively notice how words affect people, not just what is being said. Your blind spot is allowing emotions to influence your interpretation of situations. During conflict, you may withdraw first to protect yourself before opening up again. Your hidden strength is emotional intelligence. You often understand what someone truly means before they fully express it. Mercury in Leo. You communicate confidently, passionately, and with conviction. Your mind naturally organizes ideas into stories that inspire, entertain, or motivate others. People often think you're dramatic, attention-seeking, or overly confident. In reality, you're simply expressive. You believe ideas deserve enthusiasm, and you naturally communicate with warmth and presence. Your blind spot is becoming attached to your perspective because you've invested yourself in it. During conflict, you want honesty, respect, and acknowledgement. Your hidden strength is leadership. Your words naturally inspire confidence in other people. Mercury in Virgo. You communicate precisely, analytically, and thoughtfully. Your mind constantly searches for patterns, improvements, and practical solutions. People often think you're critical or judgmental. In reality, you're trying to solve problems. Your brain immediately notices what could be improved, not because you're negative, but because you're naturally wired for refinement. Your blind spot is perfectionism. You may overanalyze small details while missing the bigger picture. During conflict, you focus on solving the issue rather than reacting emotionally. Your hidden strength is exceptional observation. You notice details almost everyone else misses. Mercury in Libra. You communicate diplomatically, thoughtfully, and fairly. Your mind naturally considers multiple perspectives before reaching a conclusion. People often think you're indecisive. In reality, you're trying to understand every side before making a judgment. Fairness matters more to you than speed. Your blind spot is delaying decisions because you're searching for the perfect answer. During conflict, you seek compromise and mutual understanding. Your hidden strength is balance. You can often explain opposing viewpoints better than the people arguing them. Mercury in Scorpio. You communicate selectively, intensely, and strategically. Your mind naturally looks beneath the surface for hidden motives and deeper truths. People often think you're secretive, suspicious, or intimidating. In reality, you simply don't trust information at face value. Your brain wants to understand what people really mean, not just what they say. Your blind spot is assuming there's always a hidden agenda. During conflict, you remember everything and rarely forget broken trust. Your hidden strength is psychological insight. You often recognize patterns and motivations long before everyone everyone else. Mercury in Sagittarius. You communicate honestly, enthusiastically, and philosophically. Your mind naturally looks at the bigger picture instead of getting lost in small details. People often think you're blunt or careless with your words. In reality, you're focused on truth rather than diplomacy. You'd rather be honest than tell someone what they want to hear. Your blind spot is overlooking important details while focusing on the overall message. During conflict, you value honesty above comfort. Your hidden strength is wisdom. You naturally connect individual experiences to larger life lessons. Mercury in Capricorn. You communicate clearly, logically, and with purpose. Your mind values structure, evidence, and practical results. People often think you're cold, serious, or emotionally distant. In reality, you simply prefer substance over unnecessary conversation. You don't speak just to fill silence. You speak when you have something meaningful to contribute. Your blind spot is dismissing emotional perspectives too quickly. During conflict, you stay composed and focus on finding workable solutions. Your hidden strength is strategic thinking. You naturally see long-term consequences before others do. Mercury in Aquarius. You communicate objectively, independently, and originally. Your mind naturally questions assumptions and explores unconventional ideas. People often think you're detached, rebellious, or difficult to understand. In reality, you're thinking outside the mental frameworks most people accept without question. Your perspective often seems unusual simply because you're already looking toward the future. Your blind spot is becoming so focused on ideas that you overlook emotional reactions. During conflict, you analyze problems logically instead of emotionally. Your hidden strength is innovation. You often introduce ideas years before other people appreciate them. Last but not least, Mercury in Pisces. You communicate intuitively, symbolically, and imaginatively. Your mind naturally understands emotions, patterns, metaphors, and subtle connections that can't always be explained logically. People often think you're scattered, unrealistic, or confusing. In reality, your thoughts don't always move in straight lines. Your mind connects ideas through feelings, images, memories, and intuition instead of step-by-step logic. Your blind spot is struggling to explain insights that feel obvious internally but are difficult to put into words. During conflict, you instinctively absorb the emotional atmosphere around you, which can make direct confrontation overwhelming. Your hidden strength is intuition. You often understand people and situations long before there is logical evidence to explain why. Now let's go through Mercury in each house. The house Mercury sits in shows you which area of life you're most likely to feel misunderstood in. First, we have Mercury in the first house. If you have Mercury in the first house, you communicate openly, and your thoughts naturally become part of your identity. People often judge you based on the way you speak before they take the time to know who you really are. You're frequently misunderstood because your words become your first impression. If someone misinterprets your communication, they often assume they've understood your entire personality. Sometimes you speak so naturally that you don't realize how strongly your words shape other people's perception of you. The upside is that you communicate honestly and authentically. So when people do understand you, they always know exactly what you mean and where you stand. Mercury in the second house. You communicate carefully and thoughtfully, especially when it comes to your values, finances, beliefs, and sense of security. People often misunderstand what truly matters to you. They may assume you're stubborn or overly focused on practical matters, when in reality you're simply protecting what you believe has lasting value. You may need to be mindful about becoming too attached to familiar ways of thinking. One thing to note is your sound judgment. You rarely speak without considering the long-term consequences. Mercury in the third house. Communication comes naturally to you. You're curious, observant, and constantly learning from the world around you. People often underestimate your intelligence because your knowledge feels effortless. Others may mistake your curiosity or casual communication style for a lack of depth. You move so quickly from one idea to the next that people don't always see how much you actually know. Something to admire is your ability to learn, explain, and connect ideas faster than most people. Mercury in the fourth house. Your thoughts are deeply private. Before you speak, your mind processes everything internally, often connecting ideas to memories, emotions, and personal experiences. Some people misunderstand you because they rarely know what you're actually thinking because you don't reveal your inner world easily. Be mindful of assuming people understand what you're feeling without you having to explain it. One thing to note is your emotional wisdom. You often understand yourself and your loved ones on a much deeper level than you express. Mercury in the fifth house. You communicate creatively, expressively, and with personality. Your ideas naturally come alive through storytelling, humor, art, or self-expression. People often misunderstand your creativity as attention-seeking or assume you aren't being serious because you communicate playfully. Be mindful of expecting others to automatically understand the deeper meaning behind your creative expression. Your hidden strength is your ability to inspire, entertain, and make complex ideas memorable. Mercury in the 6th house. The 6th house rules work, routines, health, service, and solving everyday problems. With Mercury here, your mind naturally notices details, patterns, and practical improvements. You communicate with precision because you want things to function better. People often think you're overly critical or impossible to please, but really you're simply wired to notice what could be improved. Your intention is usually to help, not to criticize. Because you're focused on fixing problems and increasing efficiency, people may overlook your good intentions. Despite the misunderstandings, you have exceptional analytical and problem-solving skills. Mercury in the 7th house. Communication becomes one of the most important themes in your relationships. You naturally process your thoughts through conversation and often understand yourself better by exchanging ideas with others. People may misunderstand your desire to discuss everything as dependence or indecisiveness, but really you're seeking mutual understanding. Healthy communication is the foundation of your closest relationships. Be mindful on not relying too heavily on other people's perspectives before trusting your own. You have the ability to build understanding, resolve conflict, and create meaningful dialogue. Mercury in the 8th house. You communicate selectively and rarely reveal your thoughts until trust has been established. Your mind naturally looks beneath the surface, searching for hidden motives and deeper truths. People may misunderstand you because they often think you're secretive or hiding something. Really, you simply don't believe every thought needs to be shared. Trust comes before vulnerability. You may become so guarded that others struggle to know what you're actually thinking. Two of your greatest strengths are profound psychological insight and emotional depth. Mercury in the 9th house. Your mind is naturally drawn to philosophy, higher learning, spirituality, culture, and the search for meaning. You communicate through big ideas rather than small details. People often misunderstand your beliefs or assume you're trying to convince everyone to think like you, but in reality, you're exploring truth, not trying to win arguments. You enjoy expanding perspectives more than proving yourself right. Be mindful of overlooking practical details while focusing on the bigger picture. You have an ability to inspire people to think beyond their current worldview. Mercury in the 10th house. Your words have a powerful impact on your reputation, career, and public image. People often remember you because of what you say and how you communicate. Because you're so visible, misunderstandings tend to happen in public rather than in private. People may see you as overly ambitious, calculating, or concerned with status when you're simply focused on being professional and credible. Others may assume you're trying to sound authoritative or impress people when you're really just communicating with confidence and purpose. You may feel pressure to always say the right thing because you know your words can shape how others see you. Despite the misunderstandings, your communication naturally earns respect and authority, making people trust your expertise over time. Mercury in the 11th house. Your mind naturally thinks about the future, innovation, society, and new possibilities. You're often several steps ahead of the people around you. People frequently misunderstand your ideas because they seem unusual, unrealistic, or ahead of their time, but in reality, you're simply seeing possibilities that others haven't considered yet. You assume everyone is ready for the same conversations you're already having in your mind. You're a visionary thinker. You naturally connect people, ideas, and future trends. Mercury in the 12th house. This is one of the strongest placements for feeling misunderstood. Your mind operates beneath the surface, processing thoughts through intuition, symbolism, dreams, emotions, and the subconscious. You often know exactly what you mean internally, but translating those abstract thoughts into clear words can feel incredibly difficult. People may misunderstand you by assuming you're quiet, distant, secretive, or confusing when, in reality, your thoughts are simply happening on a much deeper level than most conversations allow. You expect people to understand feelings or insights that are difficult to explain out loud. Two of your greatest strengths are your extraordinary intuition and subconscious awareness. You often understand people, patterns, and situations long before there is logical evidence to support your insight. Now, I'll discuss Mercury retrograde in the birth chart or natal chart. Natal chart is the same as birth chart. First, it's important to understand what a retrograde planet means. A planet is called retrograde when, from Earth's perspective, it appears to be moving backward in the sky. In a natal chart, this doesn't mean the planet is weak or bad. Instead, it suggests that the planet's energy is expressed more internally than externally. Rather than operating in a direct or outward way, it becomes more reflective, introspective, and deeply personal. With Mercury retrograde, this inward focus affects how you think, process information, and communicate. You naturally reflect, question, and revise your thoughts before expressing them. Because so much of your thinking happens internally, people may see you as slow, indecisive, or inconsistent when you're actually processing information more deeply. You may also find that the perfect words come after the conversation has ended. Over time, you learn to trust your own pace, and your communication becomes thoughtful, insightful, and carefully considered. Your greatest strength is your ability to see multiple perspectives and uncover insights that others often miss. And now I'll discuss Mercury retrograde transits. Mercury retrograde is one of the most misunderstood transits in astrology. Like I said in the previous section, Mercury retrograde occurs when Mercury appears to move backward in the sky from Earth's perspective. Astrologically, this symbolizes a period when communication, thinking, travel, technology, and decision-making become less straightforward, hence more misunderstandings. Despite popular belief, Mercury retrograde isn't a curse or a period of guaranteed bad luck. It doesn't cause problems out of nowhere, it simply makes existing issues, overlooked details, and communication gaps more noticeable. During this time, misunderstandings, delays, technology glitches, scheduling changes, and miscommunication are more common because people are more likely to make assumptions, miss details, or rush through conversations. It's a reminder to slow down, double-check information, and communicate more clearly. Mercury retrograde transits are also a powerful time for reflection, review, and revision. It encourages you to revisit old ideas, rethink decisions, resolve unfinished business, and learn from the past before moving forward. While it can feel frustrating, it often provides valuable opportunities for greater clarity, personal growth, and better communication. To summarize and clarify the last two sections, if you have your Mercury in retrograde in your birth chart, as in you were born with this placement, that means your Mercury that is in retrograde in your birth chart is a lifelong part of your personality that shapes how you think and communicate. Because you were born with Mercury in retrograde, your mind processes information internally, and you're more likely to feel misunderstood throughout life. When it comes to Mercury retrograde transits, these are temporary periods that affect everyone, increasing the chances of misunderstandings, delays, and communication breakdowns while encouraging reflection, review, and clearer communication. Lastly, let's talk about hard Mercury aspects in your birth chart. Hard Mercury aspects, primarily squares, oppositions, and challenging conjunctions, can shape how you think, process information, and communicate throughout your life. These aspects don't mean you're a bad communicator. They simply describe areas where communication may require more effort, leading to recurring misunderstandings or mental challenges. Over time, they can also become some of your greatest strengths. So if you have Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct Saturn, you may be afraid of saying the wrong thing or feel like your voice isn't heard. Others may see you as cold or overly serious when really you're simply just choosing your words carefully. If you have Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct Neptune, your thoughts are intuitive and imaginative, but people may misunderstand your intentions or project meanings onto your words. You may struggle to express ideas that feel clear in your mind. If you have Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct Pluto, your conversations naturally go deep. Others may think you're manipulative, suspicious, or trying to control the conversation when you're simply searching for the truth. If you have Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct Uranus, your mind moves quickly and thinks differently. People may struggle to keep up with your ideas or see you as unpredictable when you're simply making connections others don't. Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct Mars, you communicate directly and speak your mind. Others may see you as argumentative, impatient, or confrontational when you're simply being honest and straightforward. Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct Chiron. You may carry wounds around communication, feeling misunderstood, criticized, or unheard since childhood. Finding your voice becomes part of your healing journey. Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct Lilith, you speak uncomfortable truths that others may avoid. People may see you as controversial, intimidating, or rebellious when you're simply expressing yourself authentically. Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct North Node, communication is a major life lesson. You may feel misunderstood early on, but you're learning to develop your voice and express yourself with greater confidence. Mercury square, opposite, or conjunct South Node, you may rely on familiar communication patterns that no longer serve you. Growth comes from letting go of old ways of thinking and learning to express yourself in new ways. And that's the end of this video. If you found it helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future astrology and psychology deep dives. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know your Mercury sign, house placement, aspects, or your experience with Mercury retrograde. If you'd like a personalized birth chart reading, a synastry or compatibility reading, a future spouse reading, and any of my other in-depth astrology reports, head over to my website, astroclarityreports.com. The link is in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.